This is a presentation on gratitude for the iReach program. First, a quick acknowledgement that this project was supported by the Health Resources and Services Administration of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and a disclaimer that the contents of this presentation and myself do not necessarily represent the official views of, nor an endorsement by, HRSA, HHS, the Department of Veterans Affairs, or the U.S. government. For this presentation on gratitude, there are 3 learning objectives. So when you finish with this presentation, first, I hope that you'll be able to define gratitude and how it's different from other positive emotions. Second, I hope that you gain a better understanding of how gratitude can be helpful. And lastly, hopefully that you will learn new strategies on how to practice gratitude. So first, to start, let's define gratitude. What is gratitude? At the most basic level, it's an emotion that you might feel. It can also be described as a trait or a personality characteristic. Basically, how often or how frequent are you likely to feel gratitude or experience gratitude or feel grateful in your life? So it could be considered a trait or an emotion. For this presentation, let's talk about the emotion specifically, the feeling of feeling grateful or appreciative. And the way to define gratitude at this emotion level, and the way to make it distinct or clear on how it is different from other positive emotions, is with these 3 categories of what triggers gratitude, what is the response to that feeling, and what is the motive or motivation that you might feel when experiencing gratitude. So first, the trigger. Gratitude as an emotion occurs when you yourself acknowledge that some good or benefit has happened to you, that you've received something positive. And most of the time, this is coming from somebody else. So you might find yourself feeling grateful because another person did a nice thing for you, or maybe it's a random stranger, or maybe it's a loved one who went out of their way to help you. You might feel grateful because you acknowledge that you have gained something by the actions of another person. It can be another person, maybe that's most common, but it can also be not necessarily a person. You can just be grateful for good weather that day, or you could be grateful for traffic that is moving very quickly. That's another benefit that you might receive. It's not necessarily responsible or traceable to one specific person. But regardless, the main trigger or the thing that leads people to feel grateful is acknowledging that you're receiving some kind of good or benefit. Now, when you acknowledge that this has happened, people often describe the feeling or the response to that acknowledgement as all these different words that we associate with gratitude, like feeling grateful, appreciative, thankful, those kind of just positive, good feelings, right? But then the third component, which is again what helps make gratitude distinctive from other positive emotions, is what do you feel like doing when you've acknowledged something good has happened to you and you feel grateful about it? What's the motive? What do you feel motivated to do afterwards? And what's different about gratitude is that people often experience a desire or an urge to repay somebody who did something good to them, for them. Or you might even have the urge or the desire to just pay it forward. So someone has done something good for you, you acknowledge that, it feels good, and you might say, man, I really want to do something nice for that person because of what they did for me. Or maybe somebody did something really great for you, and you say, man, I want to do something nice for somebody else too. And you want to pay it forward in some way to another person, even if it's not to the person who is primarily responsible. So those are the 3 key characteristics of what it is to feel gratitude. And what we know from a whole wide, actually deep literature on gratitude is that there's a lot of benefits to feeling this emotion. We know that higher levels of gratitude are associated with higher mental and physical health. Another way to think about that is, apart from the physical health, higher mental health or better mental health could even just mean lower levels of symptoms like depression, anxiety, or PTSD. Lower levels of just stress in general. But also, there's these other things that are really important too that come along with gratitude, like higher levels of life satisfaction, more pro-social behavior, or doing nice things for other people, and just greater social connection in general. So gratitude is a distinct emotion, that positive emotion that we can feel, and what the literature tells us and what previous scientists and research studies have shown clearly to this point is that it is associated with a whole wide range of benefits and good things. Now, one thing that's important to highlight before we even start talking about what does it look like to learn or practice gratitude is just acknowledging how difficult maybe it can be to practice gratitude or to feel grateful sometimes. And I think one misconception about gratitude is that, well, there's all these benefits, research says it's good, scientists say it's good, so if you just be more grateful, then your life is going to magically be fixed. And that's not really true. And I also think it's important to acknowledge that many people are going through some really major, serious struggles and stressors in their life, and we have to be mindful of, when we ask people who are going through real significant stressors and hard times, we have to be mindful of what does it mean to ask that person to feel grateful or to practice gratitude, because they might find themselves not really being grateful for their situation. Or if someone's incredibly depressed or anxious, it might be hard for them to engage in this positive emotion. So one question that I'd like to pose to have you or anyone think about when it comes to gratitude is it possible to experience gratitude while facing other struggles at the same time? Does it have to be one or the other? Does it have to be, well, we can only feel grateful when everything's going well, and we can't feel grateful at all when things aren't going well? Maybe not. Is it possible to be grateful for one small little thing in your life, even if it feels like everything else is going wrong? And that's just something to think about and contemplate. If it feels like, if you're listening to this and it sounds like, man, I can't practice gratitude right now, that's not realistic for me. That's just one question I would ask you to think about first. Then the next question, the follow-up question, is how might gratitude fit in daily life for you or your situation, whatever that looks like right now. So if you were to say, maybe I'm interested in trying to practice gratitude or feel gratitude more often, what would that actually look like? What are some things that you could maybe start to latch on to try and practice this feeling of gratitude? If it feels like, your relationships are not where you want them to be, then maybe it's hard to practice gratitude for things related to the people around you, but can you start by practicing gratitude with related to just the food you have, a meal that you can afford, or just a warm shower or a bed if you have access to those things. If you don't have access to those things, what are some other tangible things that you do have that others might not, that you can practice feeling grateful for? And again, the goal here is not necessarily to say, oh, let me feel grateful for one tiny thing and that's going to fix everything else. No, that's not the goal at all. Really, we're just trying to think about what would it look like to, while feeling struggles or stress or whatever it is that you're going through, what would it look like to also practice gratitude? And how might that actually fit with things that you care about, either your values or personal goals? And so going back to defining what gratitude is, looking at what is the response when you feel great, when we're feeling gratitude. It's, that feeling of being grateful and appreciative of the things around you, and thankful for something, and kind of savoring that feeling. If you were to have that in your life more often, however you got there, how would that be helpful to you? How might that be consistent with things that you're trying to do or things that you care about? Would it allow you to be more aware of the things that are important to you? Maybe, possibly. So going back to the other main, another big component, the motive. If you were to practice gratitude and you were to engage in this motivation of actually repaying someone, or you started to practice gratitude more, so then maybe you started to pay it forward and do nice things for other people. How would that fit in your life? How would that fit in with your personal goals and what's important to you? If you started to live a life where you were paying it forward to others, what kind of benefits might that bring about? Okay, so now that we've defined gratitude and talked about how it's different and distinct from other positive emotions, and then also briefly talked about what might it look like to experience gratitude in your life, and how might that be feasible and also potentially helpful to you, now I want to end on highlighting two different ways that you can practice gratitude. And both of these have been looked at in research studies and found to be linked with a lot of different kind of benefits. And so these are two primary exercises that you can practice right now. The first is a gratitude letter. And what this involves is writing out a letter, a gratitude letter, but writing it to somebody who you feel thankful for, someone who did something nice to you, somebody who did an act that you feel appreciative of what they have done for you. And so you write out this letter to that person, telling them how you feel, telling them why you're grateful. And then if you can, what's really nice and really cool with this exercise is if you can actually call them up and read the letter to them rather than sending it to them. You could send it to them, and maybe sometimes you can't actually call them and read it to them, or maybe this could even be to a person who's no longer around. You want to write a letter to somebody who's passed, and that's fine too. But if you have if you have somebody who's living, who you have their contact information, you can actually call them and read this letter out loud to them. It's a great way to even expand on all the benefits of this specific exercise. So that's one. And then the other is gratitude diary, or sometimes this is called Count Your Blessings. But and there's lots of different versions of this, but one very basic, simple version is every day before you go to bed, write down 3 good things that happened in that day that make you feel grateful. What are 3 things that you're grateful for that occurred in that day? And then also writing down why they happened. And this doesn't have to be, an hour-long journal session. It can just be very brief. 1, 2, 3. 3 things that you're thankful for. And sometimes those will be, maybe really remarkable things that have made a huge impact on you. Maybe some days it's just, I really enjoyed my cup of coffee today, or the weather was really great today. I was very thankful for a nice day of weather. It can be whatever, but writing down why those things happened are also helpful to trying to build up the case for being able to identify things that help you feel grateful in the future, but also understanding what role you play in things that bringing about things for which you might feel grateful for. So gratitude letter, gratitude diary, or Count Your Blessings, both 2 very easy exercises that you could start implementing today. Okay, thank you very much for listening to this presentation on gratitude. Please feel free to check out all the other presentations and modules with the iReach program, as well as the fact sheets. And there is one sheet on gratitude where you can find additional resources and suggestions. Thank you again.